Is it just me, or does the Valorant ranked experience not feel all that good to play? Listen, I'm a big fan of playing with the buddies. That's the best way to play pretty much any online game ever, and that certainly is the case for Valorant ranked, but just because it's the best way to play does not mean everybody's gonna play it. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that the vast majority of people playing Valorant ranked modes are going to be people who are solo queuing. And now I can immediately hear you saying, well, why is this such a problem? Solo queue in all games, solo queue not as good as playing with friend, that is obvious. But if the solo queue experience was bad in Counter-Strike, then it is terrible in Valorant. Listen, fellas, the thing is, in Valorant, everybody has a different agent, so everybody has a little bit of a different role. If I'm playing Brimstone, I put down smokes. If I'm playing maybe a Phoenix, then I gotta be the first one out, I gotta be the one flashing. But you can only play a single one of those agents at a time, and you kind of have to rely on your teammates to do a lot of the other roles, because obviously you can't be all the agents at once, you can't do all the roles at once, because you're only a single man. Obviously, this isn't the first competitive game to have different classes. Obviously, things like League of Legends and Overwatch have them, but since we're most closely comparing it to Counter-Strike, and it has obviously a lot of Counter-Strike's attributes in its gameplay, we're gonna most closely compare it to Counter-Strike, and within that game, everybody can purchase the same exact utility, everybody has the same exact abilities, which is essentially none, but everybody is on the same level playing field. In Valorant, the second your match gets found, all you're doing is praying that your teammates actually have half a brain and would be willing to kind of form some kind of team formation that isn't completely terrible, like having as many duelists as possible. But unfortunately, this wish is rarely fulfilled. Everybody just chooses whichever agent they main, and it seems that the vast majority of people only really understand one or two agents in a competitive setting, so it's rarely an easy task to find a team who actually can, work together and actually pick roles that complement each other, like having a Sova, Sage, Cypher, Breach, all these people to work together and synergize with. So that's why having a 5-stack or a 3-stack or just any kind of stack is way more powerful than solo queue, literally just from the get-go. Right even before you get into the game, you are at a massive disadvantage, literally just because you did not have any friends to queue with. Now, the second all of you guys spawn in, you realize that 4 people are on A and there's one lonely guy on B who's probably your worst player, so he's just not going to stop anything, and then you realize that you guys already have to move over, and as a result of this great turmoil, there's already going to be toxicity in the game. That's just what happens. Riot Games just always brews toxic players. I don't know how that happens. Maybe when you're signing up for a Riot account, it says in between the fine lines that you have to be a toxic and a terrible person to every one of your teammates. I don't know if that's the case, but it always seems like Riot Games have the worst kinds of people in them, and this game is no different. So it's literally only the first round, and not only do you have a bad formation, but you also have toxicity and people all over the place who don't know what they're doing, and people who aren't playing the right agents. There's just so many problems that go wrong when you and your teammates are solo queuing. Now, this is a little bit off topic. It's a little bit more of a specific point, but if you've played at any of the ranks at Diamond or Immortal or obviously above, you're going to see the difference between a 5-stack and a solo queue immediately with how fast they execute and how well they execute. The more powerful agents in the game, like Cypher, like Brim, like Sage, obviously have more powerful abilities. That's kind of the point of saying they're more powerful. But when these are combined and when it's used by people who are actually working together and understand that they have teammates that they can trust to work together and actually synergize those abilities with, it's obviously going to be incredibly powerful and going to allow you to execute pretty much any site that you want on the defense or on the attack. And it's so powerful that it's almost unfair to try and compete with the team of queued up enemies using these agents together. I have no problem with the design of the agents themselves, but it feels like it becomes way too powerful to have them used in synergy with one another, that if you know the enemies are queued and pushing a site with a few good agents, you don't have much of a choice but to die once they spam utility on site before you can even get away. I personally don't think this is an issue with Valorant itself. I think the game is really well designed in its own right. I think Riot did a really good job on that, but queuing with a 3, 4, or a 5-stack is just so much more powerful than solo queue, even more than it usually is in most other games, just because of how important team play is in this game, and it just makes it kind of unfair to even try and play against people who are queued together when you're solo queuing and just trying to, have any kind of semblance of teamwork with people who aren't even playing agents that synergize that well with each other. The Valorant developers have actually said before that they highly encourage queuing up with friends, which is obviously a really good strategy. It's the best way to play the game because, synergizing with your amigos and, putting together your abilities and your ultimates together is really fun, and it's the best way to play the game. It's how it was meant to be played. But for the people who are playing in solo queue, it just doesn't feel all that right to have to play against those kinds of people who are working together, who are using their abilities correctly, which is kind of a stupid complaint, because getting pissed at the people who are technically playing the game the way it was meant to be played is a little bit of a weird thing to do. But my main point is pretty much just that the majority of people are going to be solo queuing, and you just are at a massive disadvantage when you do that. Not everybody has the ability to queue up with friends every single second they can, or maybe the friends are at an entirely different rank and you don't want to really mess up the ranks by having to queue with someone who's like 8 ranks below or above you. So from these scenarios, you can kind of realize that even if you do have people to play with, you can't just play with them every single time. You're going to have to solo queue eventually if you actually want to have enough time and enough experience in Valorant overall, but when you end up going down that route, it just doesn't feel quite as good of a game as it should be. Valorant obviously isn't the only game that highly emphasizes teamwork and getting better at the game, but people simply don't go back to games because they want to improve their teamwork. Nobody has ever said, I can't wait to get on today so I can improve my teamwork and communication with my friends. That has never actually happened. The reason you play more is because you want to get better individually. You want to become as good of a player yourself as possible, so you can say that even if I solo queue, even if I play alone, even if every other one of my teammates is a complete toad who has their monitor turned on and are using a controller, despite all that, we can still win this game because I have enough individual skill to bring us the victory. And I'm not here to say Valorant doesn't really value individual skill, it just doesn't do that as much as in Counter-Strike. Like, for example, just the gunplay and the mechanical skill overall isn't quite as demanding as the obvious competitor Counter-Strike, and I believe that was by design because they didn't want to make the most hardcore shooter like Counter-Strike as possible. They wanted more casual people to be able to get into it. That's why the gunplay feels a little bit more dumbed down and simple compared to Counter-Strike in a lot of ways. But what it really just ends up doing is it makes the skill disparity between the really good player and the pretty good player not that big of a deal. So overall, if you have way more hours and way more aim skill, it's just not going to be as big of a deal in Valorant compared to Counter-Strike, and that's just going to devalue individual skill a little bit more, which just shifts the focus a little bit more onto team play in a game that's already super dependent on queuing up with friends and working together, which obviously isn't that big of a problem if you are queuing with other people, but you're going to realize if you solo queue, or you might have already realized, that it just isn't quite as fun as a lot of its other competitors because of how much it is based on team play over individual skill. And yeah, that's pretty much the main idea of what I was getting at. I have full faith that Riot can make it more balanced toward those playing solo queue. Maybe they make it if you're in a 3-stack or a 5-stack, it's going to queue you against people who are slightly higher ranks. I don't know, I'm not a game developer, I don't have all the solutions, I just have all the problems as a whiny little YouTuber with too much time. So yeah, that's the video. Thank you guys all so much for watching. It's been Shakes. Like the video if you like it, subscribe if you want more videos, and I hope to see you guys all in my next video. Peace, and goodbye, good day, have a good day, bye, goodbye, great bye, fantastic bye, fabulous bye, fantastic. I already said fantastic bye. Why am I saying it again? Terrible.